like, oh my God, I just ate a whole tub of ice cream. I was so emotional and I failed. And I was like, what you've done is you felt shitty and you've reached for the one thing that you know makes you feel better. I definitely am strongly against cheat days, or the framing of cheat days. I say that a diet is like a relationship, and if you need to cheat on it, you're in the wrong one. It's basically saying, I'm going to be super strict all these other days, and then I'm going to eat whatever the fuck I want on these days. It's just planning to binge, and it's creating an unhealthy cycle.
What do you think one mistake of people is when they do feel held back from getting into strength training? What holds them back?
People think you have to join a gym to get strong, and you have to have a lot of things and a lot of equipment. It comes back to that all or nothing mindset. It's like, I've got to do it properly or I'm not doing it all. You can start with such basic stuff. Like, yeah, if you want to get stronger over time, you will probably have to expand, but you don't have to start there.
Welcome back to the PerformWell Podcast. This is the podcast for you if you're looking for performance and wellness optimization so that you can not only smash your career, but also have a better life, better relationships, and better health. We believe that performance and wellness are yin and yang and work together. So listen in as we dive into topics that are going to help you optimize your life for the better.
Hello, welcome back to the PerformWell Podcast, and we have an amazing guest on today. We have Emmaline here with us, which is absolutely fantastic. Aussie living in the UK, and we're going to take a deep dive into her coaching philosophies, fitness side of things, and some areas of expertise and interest that she has, and she is full of them, we'll be brutally honest as well. So, Emmaline, how are you doing today?
Oh, good. I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
I'm glad. So,
Good day.
G'day.
you
How's
got
it
to throw
going?
that in early. Again, I'm not doing this. We spoke about this before. I'm not even bothering. Maybe later on I'll sneak it in. But we kind of want to come straight into the action and start talking about some key areas as well. But we also want a bit of a background on you. So you mentioned to us in, well, I like to say the green room to sound fancy. It's not the green room. It's just a pre-recording. But we want to speak to you about, because you've moved to UK 2 years ago, you said.
Yeah.
Now, how has the change influenced your career? Because did you PT in Australia and then move here, or coach in Australia? It was all the transition.
I wasn't even in this world when I left Australia. Everything happened in the UK. So when I left Australia, I was like, yeah, I think this is what I want to do. I want to do online coaching. I left Australia with no job, no visa, and just came over. My visa was had a mess up, and it was coming 9 months later. So I was here with just living, burning through all my savings. And after about 6 months here, I had moved in with a mate, and he's like, you want to become a coach, you need to start making content. And he's been a coach for 10 years. And so he's like, you got to start making content. And eventually they convinced me to do it. They're like, you'll have a couple of hundred followers by the time you finish your PT qualification and start coaching. And I was like, yeah, sick. And then my video went viral in the first week, and I gained followers a lot faster than I could finish my coaching qualification. So everything went backwards. So then I was scrambling to finish my qualification, and then started coaching. So yeah, it all happened very quickly.
Yeah, that's wild, man. Because me and Dan, we are posting videos, man. For how many years, Dan?
Oh, under 5 years.
How many of yours went viral in the first week of posting?
None. Absolutely none.
Exactly.
I dread to think, that was my mum, my dad, and my auntie liking my posts at that point in time.
It was very much people are like, oh, you just got lucky, and to a degree I did, but also I posted every single day for the first 6 months. So, without fail, and a new piece of content. And it was the first one that went viral, got me from a couple of hundred friends and family to about 2K followers. And then I had one go viral in the third month that just fucking rocketed me and went 3 million views.
Man, that's awesome. Do you know what? Honestly, most people from the UK will go to Australia.
Yeah.
And then actually do the same thing that you've done, but you've done it the wrong way around.
I have done it the wrong way around. If I had a dollar for every time someone asked me that question, I could have retired already. But I just wanted to travel more. So in 2022, I went on a 3-month solo trip across the UK. Never left Australia. Sorry, not across the UK, across Europe. So I never left Australia, never done solo traveling. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's do 10 weeks solo across Europe. What's the worst that can happen? And it was the best thing ever. And I was like, well, I want to move over there and travel a bit more. So I actually came over for travel and not for work.
Okay, I was going to say, how have you settled into it as well? Because I feel like, I mean, culture, let's be honest, from Australia to the UK, why a lot of people transfer from here over to there, I find there's less of a culture clash than, say, if you were going to go to, I don't know, Saudi Arabia or, you know, something like that. So what was the drawing factor that made you come to the UK then?
I don't speak another language, so it made more sense to set up in the UK than somewhere in Europe. I like to joke that if I could do it again, I'd go to Spain because fuck UK weather. But you know, I've gotten used to it now, and all like the opportunities and the encouragement from friends and meeting people in the fitness community and everything has come from being in the UK. So I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way. But geez, the winters feel like they're about 4 years long.
Oh, they're awful. And the problem with the UK weather, right, is that it's just mild all the time. You don't really get that beautiful sunrise and sunset all the time that you do in Australia. And like, honestly, I went to Australia for a year. For those that don't know, Emmaline is Australian. Can you believe it? With her accent. And just to clear this up, by the way, is it Australia or Australia?
Australia? Where the fuck did you hear Australia?
Australia. Some other Australian guy said to me Australia, and I was like,
they're
Australia?
pulling your leg. We do like to have the foreigners on.
Yeah. So, Australia, Pom. Don't you fucking know that? And I'm like, what? Anyway, so going to the Australia was one of the most amazing times of my life. I don't know why you came over to the UK. The weather's awful here. But Australia is beautiful. And I found out the other day that there's more kangaroos than people on this planet.
Really?
Therefore, if we had to fight all the kangaroos bare-fisted, we would be absolutely screwed and outnumbered.
Well, Australians already lost the war to the emus, so it would only seem right we lost the war to the kangaroos. Have you guys heard of the Great Emu War?
No, you've got to tell us more. I need to know about this.
That's not a piss take. There was a whole heap of emus. I don't know the full story, but there was an overrun of emus, and like this was back when like England colonised Oz. I think that's the right way to say it. And they tried to fight off all the emus, and they lost the war. Like they had guns and things and all sorts, and they lost the war against the emus. It's the Great Emu War. You can look it up.
So we have lost a war. I don't know if you guys have seen like an Al Murray sketch. There was a guy called the Pub Landlord. He's one of the comedians in the UK, and he said we have never lost a war. Like genuinely, he could reel off loads. And now you've told me this, and he's just a fake personality to me now.
Yeah,
and I can't believe we lost the war to the emus.
People they'd be like, oh, but they were Australians. But I'm pretty sure it was before like we'd had several generations of Aussies or anything. So, I mean, Australia's only 250 years old, like as like a white colony. I mean, it had people for a long time before that we did awful things to when we took their land, but as a British colony, it's only 250 years old.
It's mad, isn't it? Right, what I want to kind of move over to now as well, because you spoke a little bit in there about the very important point that we want to touch on for people, which is the online coaching and the fitness side.
Yeah.
Because we want to delve into kind of, again, your background in this, your beliefs, your opinions, and kind of delve a little bit into this section. Now, one of your big beliefs is about gradual, sustainable progress rather than extreme dieting or training. I think a lot of it is sparked on social media. I mean, let's be brutally honest, the amount of times we're seeing call-out culture becoming increasingly more popular these days as well. You know, James Smith really made it apparent when he started going into that delve. And it's a good thing in some opinion because it puts people back in their place where they need to be rather than just spouting shit. Now, with yourself, the approach that you're talking about is sustainable progress. Can you kind of elaborate on what sustainable progress is against the whole kind of extreme nature of some diets that people take on?
Yeah, I always like to tell people, if you can't include something while you're losing fat, how do you expect to include it to maintain the result? And I think so many people are so quick to go, well, I can't have this, and I can't have this, and I can't have this while I'm on a diet. And then, you know, it gets to the end of the diet, like, woohoo, I can go back to normal. And they start eating all these things they hadn't been doing while they were losing fat, and then they lose the result. So for me, sustainability is not in, like, fat loss isn't sustainable. We don't want to lose fat forever, but we want to create routines and mindsets around food that carry the result forever.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to look at it as well. I think like me and Nick do the same thing. We preach that side of things as well. I think aggressive diet culture really came into the fray, I'd say like 10 years ago, even earlier than that, with juice cleanses. I got told about the Special K diet, where all you'd eat is like Kellogg's cornflakes for the whole thing, and that would be it. That would be all you'd eat. Mad diets that they're all coming through. Like, let's be honest, keto, carnivore, those kind of diets are the big prevalent ones at the minute that people are pushing, and they have their place and they have their zone. But again, as you say, a lot of it is just cut-out culture. Like, you turn around to someone, you mention a chocolate bar, people like shrivel up inside. And as a coach and as a PT, the amount of times you speak to a client and they're like, oh, I had some bread the other day and I felt really bad. And I'm like, why did you feel bad for eating bread? And they were like, because it's bread and it's carbs. I'm like, it doesn't, that's not how it works.
Don't you find that everyone's always just trying to lose weight as well? Like, they never take a time to maintain or bulk. It's like every year it's just, oh, I'm trying to lose weight, and they go through this cycle where they lose a bit of weight and they put it back on, lose a bit of weight, put it back on. They just don't stop. It's a rat race. It's horrible.
I'm always trying to tell my clients, if you've got some shit on, you've got a holiday or Christmas and you maintain your weight for a couple of weeks, that in itself is a win, because you've just shown that you can go off track and maintain your weight, or not go backwards like very much at all, like not a noticeable amount. And so you've already starting to learn that skill that you're going to need when you finish your fat loss phase, because you've just proven to yourself that you can maintain it when you take a break.
So Emily, based on this philosophy then, right, are you in the camp of having 5 days where you're on track with your diet and then 2 days where you're slightly off track? Let's call them cheat days for the example. Or are you someone that says every day is a little treat every single day?
A mix of both. I definitely am strongly against cheat days, or the framing of cheat days. I say that a diet is like a relationship, and if you need to cheat on it, you're in the wrong one. So I'm very much against cheat days, because it's basically a planned binge. It's basically saying, I'm going to be super strict all these other days, and then I'm going to eat whatever the fuck I want on these days and on this day, and like, it's just planning to binge, and it's creating an unhealthy cycle. So I would do a mix of, if you've got something on that you want to take a night off for or a day off for, just do it. Just do your best around that. So it's not like planning days in. It's just like, well, this is coming up and I don't want to stress about counting my calories or anything like that while I'm doing it. So I'm just going to be on it for the rest of the week, and that meal, I'm just going to relax. So it's not necessarily like I'm planning days on and days off. It's just like, when I have something on, I can relax because I know I'm on it the rest of the time. And as for having a little treat every day, this is something I very strongly encourage. I just say to my clients, a phrase that I use quite a lot is, you can have anything, just not everything. So you can have any food you like. You can have absolutely anything. There's no food that's off limits, nothing that's good or bad. You just can't have everything at once. So, have a brownie today and a burger tomorrow and a slice of pizza the next day. You can have anything, just not all at once. And so I actually have a client at the moment who is very much stuck in the good and bad food mentality. And I scared her a little bit, and I was like, right, you're getting a new tick box to check every day. And in that box, you're going to put in something that you would deem bad that you've had to include in your diet. And she's a couple of weeks in and going, I can't believe I'm getting results and eating chocolate and popcorn and all of these things every day, and I actually feel so much less stressed.
It is mad, isn't it? Because I think that's a big thing. It's fear factor around food as well, like big time fear factor. I've had clients in the past where, look, I'm not a guru in this area by any means. I do my research and look up, much like all of us. But I've had to turn around to clients and said one of the big areas that they've struggled with is that kind of disinclusion of food, is sitting there and saying, physically, this cannot come in my diet because if I smell it, I get fat. Yeah. And unfortunately, just by sniffing stuff, you're not going to put on weight. If it worked that way, my God, we're in the kitty.
Yeah, I'd be screwed.
Like, you were exactly. So it's just getting a balance between things. Now, you spoke about, obviously, a client that you've trained in the past, and one of your big practices about small wins. Now, if a new client comes into you, how do you build that relationship with them initially and say about this small win mentality to help them build? How do you have that conversation?
I always sort of cover a few of the things that I've already spoken about just there, about the anything, not everything mentality, about having to include everything along, like all the foods along the way, if you want to be able to keep the result. And I find those things really like stick with people. In terms of small wins, I don't throw people in the deep end. I think like this is what too many people get wrong when they're starting something new, is they're like, right, I'm gonna go fucking balls to the wall, get everything perfect from day one, and then they feel like a failure when they don't do it. So I tend to ease them in. Like I tend to start them with, let's just start tracking your calories if it's something they want to do. I don't force people to do it. I give them an option, but most people tend to do that because they understand the reasoning behind it because I teach them. So let's just start tracking your calories with what you're eating now. So you can already just start learning about the food you're eating now before we set targets, because I think tracking calories is one skill and tracking to a target is another. So we spend a week or two tracking calories, and then I set targets based off that, so it's not too far from what they're doing and it's much more realistic and achievable. And so people go, firstly, they're like, all right, I don't have to do everything at once. and then they go, oh, this is easier to do now that I've been tracking for a week or two. So it's just like more so mindset wins, and then with the mindset wins that come from being able to ease into it, they're not so overwhelmed, they are able to stick to it, and then you get things like scale wins as well.
I love that. That's actually what I do with my clients, and I think Dan does the same, is that we always start them off with that food tracking periods. And I think for me personally, it comes down to the fact that we don't know how they're eating, and to suddenly get them to eat a certain way and track it is not showing us the full picture of what got them to where they are. And I couldn't agree more. I think that's probably one of the best things you can do. In terms of that first change then, when you've got them to track for the first week, what is the first thing you've noticed, like let's say out of most people you've coached, what's the first thing that you start to notice and make the first change on?
What do you mean by that?
So let's say that your average client, they're potentially trying to lose weight, at least I'm assuming so. What is the biggest problem that you see most people make when it comes to their diet and once they've tracked it for the first week?
It depends on what level they come in at. But for a lot of people, I find the biggest issue, especially if they've never tracked before, is they're just missing protein. So many of them are missing protein. And I have people that don't want to track calories, and I just get them to keep a food diary. And I go, this is sick. You're actually eating like reasonably nutritious foods, and you've got like lots of fruit and veggies in there, but you've got like a protein source in 1 meal out of 3. And this is why you're running around snacking in the afternoon. And, you know, those people that I haven't even got tracking, I'm just like, all I want you to do, I don't want you to change anything. All I want you to do is make sure you have a protein source in each meal. And we cover what sort of things are classed as a protein source and how to understand it. And all of a sudden they come back to me in a week going, oh my God, I'm so full all the time and I just don't want to snack anymore. And I haven't told them they can't snack. All I've said is include protein in all your meals.
It's honestly astounding as well with protein. It's that one big thing. I had a period of time with content that I put out there, and anyone watching this who has followed me for a little bit will know about the old 50 grams of protein debacle that I used to do a long time ago. First viral post that ever went out was 50 grams of protein, funnily enough, in McDonald's. Of all things, it could have gone viral for. But it kind of depicted this thing, and I found it so strange, the amount of engagement I got from people when they turned around to me and went, this is the most helpful content ever. I went, all I'm doing is going on my fitness pal, typing in the food that I have that I've bought, and to be fair, excuse to have McDonald's. So I typed that in, and everyone's like, I didn't realise how much protein was in this. I'm like, you can all do this. You can do this by turning packaging around as well. And it's fascinating how protein, as much as we talk about it a lot, and as coaches, it is almost kind of, you know, something we hear, as I say, all the time. But then when it comes down to giving it to a client, it's one of those things that becomes overwhelming, becomes stressful. I had a client today who was saying they were struggling to figure out ways of getting protein in their diet. Granted, she's vegan, so she finds it a little bit more kind of taxing on the mind. Mm-hmm. So for yourself, when you've had clients come in the past with different dietary restrictions, for example, let's say vegan, how would you then cater the way that you coach to help those clients through?
To be fair, I actually do have one vegan client, but when she's come to me, she's like, I've been vegan for years. I've got a handle on this. I know what I need to do with protein. But even, I think the biggest mistake people make when it comes to protein is thinking they have to get all their protein from high protein snacks. They're like, all right, like rather than thinking about what protein am I having in my meals, they're like, oh, well, I've got a protein bar and a protein shake and a protein yogurt, and all these things help me get my protein for the day. And I think the same rule applies whether you're vegan, eat carnivore, or you're not going to have a problem with protein there. But you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter what diet you've got. I think people would make the mistake of thinking they have to get protein in everything, including all their snacks. And I say to people, if you can hit like a reasonable amount of protein in your meal, that you don't have to worry about getting in snacks, and then you can have the fucking chocolate bar for Arvo tea. It doesn't really matter. Like, because you've got, 30, 40 grams in your breakfast, 40 grams in your lunch, 50 grams in your dinner, and then all of a sudden you're up over 120 grams of protein, which for most, like, a woman of my size, it's a good place to be. And most women anyway, like, sort of 100, 150 is a reasonable place to be. And I think people make that mistake, and I say to them, I'm like, all right, would you rather have a protein yogurt or a chocolate bar in the afternoon? They're like, a chocolate bar. And I'm like, would you rather have 150 grams of chicken with dinner or 200? And they're like, 200. I was like, well, there you go, problem solved. Increase your portion of protein in your meal and have the chocolate bar for afternoon tea.
Yeah, it's so simple. And like, to be honest as well, like when you think about breakfast, if people just had more protein in their breakfast, they're already on target to achieve their goal, just like you said about making sure you get protein in at a certain rate for each meal. And for those that come along with their food tracking, I often find that the breakfast is one of the worst parts of it to
Yeah.
begin with. And it's like you're setting this day up with complete failure in mind, because most people eat cereal with milk, a little bit of protein in it, I would probably say, but it's not very high in protein. It's very high in sugars and simple carbohydrates, and it's not very good for them come 10 a.m. when they get that little mid-morning crash and snack that they want to eat stuff. And so I find breakfast, adding more protein to it is a great way of starting. But then you get those intermittent fasters out there. Now, what do you think about those intermittent fasters that say you shouldn't eat until 2 p.m. in the evening? And so those guys are obviously putting all their food into one big basket and telling everyone else that's the way you should eat. What's your views on that?
I think should is a self-imposed belief, and we shouldn't feel like we have to do anything. Yep. When people say, oh, I really should do this, I go, why? And they go, what? I was like, why? Why should you do that? And when you dig a bit deeper, often there's actually no genuinely good reason. They're like, oh, I just feel like everyone says I have to. So when people, like, I actually have nothing against intermittent fasting. Just don't call it intermittent fasting. You just skip breakfast, mate. Like, that's literally all there is to it. And I don't think this is the worst strategy there is. If you're hungry in the morning, it's probably not for you. Have breakfast. If you train in the morning, it's not for you. Have breakfast. But if, you know, you have a fairly slow start to the morning and you don't get hungry till lunchtime, don't eat till lunchtime. Like, I think it's really dependent on the individual, but I don't think it should be, oh, I don't eat before 12 and I'm really hungry this morning, so I still can't eat because it's not 12 o'clock yet. Like, I don't think it needs to be that strict. It's like, if you're hungry, eat, and if you're not hungry, don't eat.
I think one of the things that gets publicised a lot, and I've seen it a lot of I don't know if you follow a guy called Train Bloom. He's an American guy, does some really amazing content. I will say, like, the style of it is perfect for kind of annotating on what people talk about, because people talk about intermittent fasting causing more fat burn. Now, there's a difference between fat burn and fat loss, as we know, and I think that's one of the confusing factors people have a lot of the time, that they sit there and go, well, if I'm intermittent fasting, I burn more fat in the morning. Now, the main thing to remember is when we're burning fat, the body is very, very clever, because if we're using fat for fuel in the morning, we tend to use less fat for fuel in the evening. So it kind of compromises itself throughout the day as well. And that's what listeners to really take in. Don't, just because something's saying it's burning fat doesn't mean it's burning body fat. It means it's burning the essential part of the fuel system that we need to use. So bear that in mind if you're talking about intermittent fasting. Now, I kind of want to go back to a little topic that we covered a bit there, and it was about the emotional eating side of things, because I think it's a really important topic area at the minute as well. You speak a lot about, like, cutting out foods is the biggest mistake that people can normally make, because then it doesn't build that sustainable habit. It's not what you're going to do for a lifestyle long term, and arguably it creates more binge sessions later down the line too. But when it comes to emotional eating, people have, again, connotations that we've spoke about behind food, and they have massive food worries when it comes to, like, carbs. I've had people come to me in the past be like, I physically don't eat carbs because it causes me the biggest sense of anxiety and worry. If someone came to you and had that conversation with you from the start, what kind of advice would you give them?
Well, again, I would ask why. Where's the worry stemming from? Why is it that carbs are stressed? And I imagine it would probably come back to, well, the person on Instagram told me I can't eat carbs. So then you dig a bit deeper into that. But when it comes to emotional eating in general, I think so many people feel like it's a bad thing and that they're a failure and they're getting something wrong. I mean, I've come from my own personal journey, a lot of binge eating and a lot of emotional eating, and I just felt like I was broken and there was something wrong with me. And I don't think people realize it's actually not as bad as you think. They're like, oh my god, I just ate a whole tub of ice cream, I was so emotional and I failed. And I was like, what you've done is you felt shitty and you've reached for the one thing that you know makes you feel better. And so from there, once they understand, all they're looking for is feeling better. They're looking for dopamine. They're looking to not feel the way they are, and that's the fastest way to get to not feeling the way they are. They might feel worse afterwards, but it temporarily fixes the problem. Once they understand that, then you can look at other ways that get them a similar feeling. And, you know, you can't necessarily replace food. That nothing is going to replace a fucking mighty spoonful of Nutella. Nothing's going to make me feel that good. But there might be something else that makes me feel nearly as good, that's going to make me feel better in the long term. So if I can sit back and go, all right, well, I can think about having this. I get my clients to write what I call a dopamine menu. So it's a menu of things that give you dopamine. and things that you know are going to make you feel better. Because often when you're in an emotional state, you're not thinking, you know what, if I just take a bath, I'll feel better. You're thinking, give me some fucking chocolate. So if you've got that list there, they can refer to that list when they're not thinking straight and go, oh, maybe I'll try this first. And I always tell them, it's okay if you come back to the food. It's about pausing, taking a moment and making it a decision and not a reaction. So you can still decide to have the food, but you want it to be a choice and not something you've just snapped and done.
Apologies for interrupting the podcast. We know you're getting fully engrossed into this episode, and we really appreciate you stopping on the video on YouTube or on Spotify if you found us through one of the search pages. Make sure to leave a review and a subscription if you haven't already. But we just wanted to interject a point here that me and Nick have 15 years of coaching experience between us, and it's only getting better as we've got better guests on the podcast. The only way we can do that, though, is with the growth of our program that we've just released. We've got a 12-month PerformWell program, which has just dropped, and we'd love you guys to get involved in it. If you want to learn more details, make sure to head to the description, as we've got our website in there, which can give you a full overlay of the program. We're looking to help career-driven professionals, entrepreneurs, small business owners, and anyone dominate their life by improving their lifestyle. Me and Nick like to claim ourselves as experts in this area, and if you want to check out some of our other transformations, I'm sure you do. We've got some amazing people who have performed so well off the back of this program. Have a cracking day, and we really appreciate your time. Let's get back to the podcast. Yeah, I think that's one thing that people just don't, that difference between being reactive to things as well and making a decision, like an actual informed decision in their mind. It's those two parts of the brain. If you've ever read The Chimp Paradox, goes into great detail about this chimp and the person. And a lot of the time people can't separate between their chimp, which is the emotional center, and the person, which is the logical side. And as soon as you start going down the emotional route, a lot of it is this kind of like overwhelm, anxiety, stress that builds around certain concepts in your life, such as you spoke about their food groups. Now, you spoke about your own experience with emotional eating. Can we delve into a little bit of your own story when it came to emotional eating? What was the point that you realized you were emotionally eating yourself and, as you say, being more reactive with the food that you were eating?
I think it built and spiraled over years. So I think I did it like, you know, as we all do, like as a young adult and a late teen. I moved out of home when I was 18, and so I became an adult very quickly. And, you know, I was in a not so great relationship, so food became a comfort for me very quickly. And it actually got worse once I started my fitness journey, because a lot of people think, oh yeah, I'm going to get into the gym and I'm going to fix everything and I'm going to do all of this. And it just started the beginning of that diet culture and the overly restrictive diets, and then turning more to food to binge, turning more to the emotional eating, getting into more shitty relationships. 11 out of 10 would not recommend. But, you know, seeking comfort in food was all I knew. And it, the more restrictive the diets became, the worse the binges became. And I guess binging and emotional eating are sort of two separate issues in themselves. But for me, they were also quite linked. So like the emotional eating might trigger the binge as such, but I would get to the end of a binge and I would look back at it and I'd go, what just happened in the last half hour? What have I eaten? I don't know what the hell happened. I was like, it's almost like an out of body experience. Whereas some people will be like, oh, I was emotional eating, and they took a tub of ice cream and sat on the couch with it and just did that to make them feel better, rather than like being aware of it the whole time. And I like to tell clients that like the binge eating and the emotional eating aren't necessarily the same thing. They can be, you can have both, but they're not necessarily the same thing. So for me, I think a lot of the emotional eating just came from putting myself in, you know, stressful relationships, stressful jobs, and not really prioritizing myself and putting everyone else first. So then food became my comfort because I didn't have anything else that was mine.
I mean, yeah, I think
that you relate to that.
Yeah. Go on.
Yeah.
Go on. How do you relate?
No, I'm just listening to you, Emmaline, because it's just, it sounds so relatable, doesn't it? Like,
yeah.
Like whenever, I think stress is one of the things that you brought out like quite impactfully there, in terms of that was the cause that potentially gave you that emotional response to eating whatever came up for the comfort angle. And like, it is hard sometimes, because when you're running a business like all three of us are, and or even those, you know, working a heavy career, it's so hard when you don't take time for yourself to be able to actually process these things. And I always say that if you haven't got a morning routine and an evening routine of some kind, I'm not talking like an hour-long cold shower in the morning or anything like that, then it's very hard to have time for yourself to actually process stuff. And then you're gonna find it harder to control this emotional eating. But I'm just listening to you and relating, and it's crazy. And I know a lot of people will. I know a lot of people listening to this will relate to you as well.
Yeah, I think that's the most common thing I get when people reach out to me. They're like, you're just very real and very relatable, and like I feel like you understand me. One of the, coming back to the like having time for yourself, the most important question I feel I have in my weekly check-ins with my clients, because you know there's normal things like, oh, what's your weight doing and how is your food, and you know, some wins for the week. I have a question that I haven't seen anyone else do, and it is, tell me one thing, just one thing you did for yourself this week that made you happy, and it doesn't have to be health and fitness related, because I want my clients to be making sure they're taking some time, because a lot of them are mums or working crazy jobs and they don't have a lot of time. I don't need them to be taking half an hour out of every day. And sometimes it's as small as when I went to Subway because I was in a rush for lunch, I got a cookie and I didn't feel bad about it, and that made me really happy this week. And other times it's as big as my friend took me on a whole day for a spa day, and it can be big or it can be small, but I want to make sure they're aware that I'm going to ask them every week, you have to do something for yourself. And I think once they start being aware that they need to do that, they tune in better to their eating and looking after themselves.
I think that's one of the things, prioritizing that self time. Honestly, if you would have spoke to me 5 years ago, I was a completely different person. I can't remember who I was speaking to a little while ago. It was someone who hadn't seen me for about 4 years, and they turned around and said, I don't know what's happened to you. You used to be so negative all the time about things, and like everything that was the world's fault, and very victim mentality, and like not seeing things in the light that I should. But then you start to spend time on yourself to realize that kind of like transition through things. And actually this can bring us onto a conversation, because you strength train yourself. I've seen a few of your stories. You are looking phenomenal, by the way, my dear, in terms of the strength training you're doing. Looking great. What I wanted to kind of tap into a little bit here is the strength training you do, because actually the strength training you do is a slightly more, I'd argue, advanced variation on what we say with like strength training, air quotes there, because you're doing like strongman training. Am I right in saying?
Correct. I'm actually very new to that.
I was going to say, it looks great though. Can you talk to us a little bit about what brought you into that style of training? Because obviously most people go in the gym, they do squats, deadlifts, whatever, but you're going into doing like axle press and axle dead. Like, talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, I was very fortunate that when I started in the gym, I just instantly fell in love with training. A little known fact about me is I grew up playing cricket. I played cricket for 20 years. So I've always been around the lads and always been that like stronger gal, and I've always enjoyed that. And so when I found the gym in my early 20s, I was like, this is sick, we're gonna get strong, this is awesome. But I never had a coach, and I kind of just plodded along following like PDF programs and stuff for years and years. And then at the start of last year I met my now coach, and he was like, you're stronger than you think you are, do you know that? I was like, no, that's my max, that's all I can lift. And he's like, bullshit, that's all you can lift. And I went in for a session and he added 20 kilos to my deadlift in half an hour or an hour or something ridiculous. And I was like, oh, okay. And so then he wrote me a program and he said, have you thought about powerlifting? Because I think powerlifting is a lot more accessible because you can train it in a normal gym. So powerlifting, for anyone that doesn't know, is just squat, bench and deadlift. And so I started doing a bit of that, but my coach is a strongman and he's fucking excellent at what he does. And he got me very strong, very fast. I did a little bit of powerlifting, and then I decided to late last year to try just a strong woman comp for fun, and it was really fun. I was like, oh no, but I think I'm going to stick with powerlifting a bit more because I kind of committed to that in my brain. And then in January I was starting to have a bit of a negative experience with the powerlifting community. Not really vibing it. It's a quite cliquey kind of community. I didn't find it so welcoming towards the end there, and I went and tried out a strongman gym. I met some people at a squat workshop day I did. This is late January, so very recent. And they're like, oh, come along and we'll show you the strongman gym, like that's local here, because I'd always been too scared to go. One session, I went back to my coach afterwards because he's like, oh, just go and have fun. Don't worry about program or whatever. I went back to my coach afterwards. I was like, right, we're converting. We're going from powerlifting to strongman. That was so much fun. Everyone was so much nicer. And there's just so much more to do. So like powerlifting is squat, bench, deadlift, whereas strongman is just like every competition is different events. There's 5 events. It's all these weird and wacky things. Like I lift rocks now and giant dumbbells above my head, and like it's so much fun. And because I'm new to it, like I'm getting a lot of like PBs because they're all new things, and it's just great. I'm just collecting PBs every week, so I'm feeling really good and really, really loving it. And I've laid the foundation of strength with my coach over the last year in powerlifting and rocketed my strength by having a coach. We added in 9 months we added 65 kilos to my deadlift, which is insane.
How much you weigh?
Just under 65, and I'm deadlifting
Right.
175.
So for those that don't know, that's insane. That's a better ratio than myself. That's
Big,
insane.
big
Yeah.
numbers.
My biggest one this week is I just popped up a 40 kilo dumbbell with one hand.
Woo.
So I'm really loving this. I'm like, this is cool. That's 2/3 of my body weight with one hand.
And here's the thing, right? Like, you're female, and so I mean, a lot of people say that females shouldn't be weightlifting, that kind
Yeah.
of thing. Like, how many times have you heard that? Like, strongman's not for females, strongman's not for girls, and they try and belittle you and make you seem like you're just like this small person that can't handle big weights. But this
Yeah.
is insane.
Yeah, lots of people I think are scared, and like, I don't know, I like to think, like, you look at me, you can tell that I lift. You can also tell that I eat cake, but you can tell that I lift. But you're never going to look at me and go, oh, she's big and bulky. And like, people are so scared about that. They're scared, like, oh, if I lift weights, I'll get bulky. I'm like, I have been lifting weights for 8 years. I have been trying to get strong that whole time. I've got a coach where we've really been trying to get strong for the last year. And I've put on a lot of muscle and I'm still not bulky. Like, you have to train so hard and you have to eat so much food. You are not going to get bulky by accident. That's like saying I got in an F1 car and I won the Grand Prix. I don't even think they're the right car analogies, but you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to become a race car driver just from getting into the race car. And you're not going to become a bodybuilder or a powerlifter or a strong woman just from walking into a gym. You have to actively have that as a goal. So if your goal is just to get a little bit stronger, you'll just get a little bit stronger.
And that's so true. Like, the misconception is that strength equals size, but strength is actually not the same thing. Like, strength is your central nervous system switching on more muscle fibers at once. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that you actually have bigger muscles from doing it. It can lead to more size over time, but that's also down to other muscle building hypertrophy, reasons such as muscle damage, lengthening of the muscle under tension. So for those ladies out there that are obviously wondering if weightlifting's for them, if you're focusing on strength like Emmaline is here, you're not going to necessarily get that bulky unless you're spending years and years and eating lots of protein and lots of food and lots of calories, maybe with a little bit of assistance along the way, you never know. But there are some ladies out there that do bodybuilding. They are in obviously prime bulked up shape, and that's because they want to. Yeah. And they go down that route.
And they usually have a little bit of artificial nudging along the way. Like, you're not really going to get there. Women don't have like the testosterone levels to get proper bulky naturally. We just it won't happen. I've tried, it won't happen.
You have your ceiling. Honestly, you have your ceiling. There was one woman that me and Nick used to work with, Nick still works with, called Marchenna. I don't know, she got a pro card for bodybuilding.
Sick.
But like, when I say to people, I use her as like a genuine example. When people come in, I had a girl come in, she's very slim built, quite tall. I say she's about 5'9", but she's very much just kind of like, how do I describe it? Like Vogue model physique, wears the low-waisted jeans and that kind of vibe. And she turned around to me the other day and she was like, Dan, I'm doing a lot of shoulders. I think I'm going to get bulky. And I sat there for a minute and I was like, let me tell you, one thing that won't happen, and it's not you're going to get broad out and bulk out. She was like, I just don't want shoulders like you. I went, thanks. I'll take that as a backhanded compliment. So thank you for that. But like, I turned around to her and I showed this photo of Marchenna. And Marchenna is fucking jacked. Like, she has got the wings, she's got the shoulders. When I first met her, and this isn't me being rude, a lot of people do because she smokes a lot of fags too, she has a very gruffly voice. And I thought she was a bloke. To start with, I pulled my hands up and I thought she was a bloke. And people are worried and scared about her when she's training. She's one of the nicest people on the planet you'll ever meet. But when I use her as an example for training, people are concerned about getting to this. I'm like, this lady has been enhanced for 25 years of her life training. And this is where she's at. 25 years later, you've been training for 4 months, my love, doing about 4 kg lateral raises. Don't you worry.
4
you're going
kg
to be
in 4
fine.
months is good. Lat raises just never go up.
It is, though, they don't. They
I
struggle.
think I did 4
But,
kg for 5 years.
It's one of those things that you tell someone to raise their arm up and immediately like, this is so challenging, I can't do it.
100%.
But like,
it's the same as guys out there. Like, I don't know if you've had any guy clients that come up to you and say, I don't want to be too big, I just want to get in good shape. It's like, try and get too big. Try.
Yeah,
Try.
I challenge you.
challenge you.
I think if people try to get too big, they'll probably get to where they want to be. But they're so scared to even get big at all that they're not putting enough effort into their training and their diet and things like that, that they're not going to get to even where they want to be. Because getting too big, I have never met someone that has gone, you know what, I'm too big, I'm going to dial things back. I've never met them. I'd be happy to be shown, but I've never met them.
See, I have a conversation to bring in there, and one thing I said to Nick a little while ago is I swapped kind of like same with yourself. I kind of swapped up my training a little bit. However, I went more down the endurance route. Now, one thing I do notice, and because we went into the whole hybrid training era and I got sucked in, hold my hands up. But like I went into this and I did my first triathlon. Now, one thing I noticed as a 95 kilo bloke, it's a lot harder when you're carrying muscle mass that is designed for aesthetic and not functionality. Because there is a difference between the two of them, and when you try and you don't see jacked endurance runners a lot of the time. Not really, like you don't see huge
not unless it's like a
runners.
side quest for them, and they're like, "Oh, I'm just fit enough to do this on occasion."
Nick Bear and Russ
Nick
Hodgley are actually prime examples that might contradict that a little bit, but not the normal. It's not the norm.
It's
sure.
not the norm at all,
Yeah.
it isn't. But I found I felt heavy. And like when I started to cut down a bit, it was easier for my running performance. But again, this is where muscles become functional as well. And a lot of the training that, everyone here will do is training with clients. It becomes the functionality of what you're doing can progress you further. We obviously want aesthetic, but I think I argue a lot of the time if your body can do amazing things, you're going to feel amazing in what you're doing, rather than just having this constant cycle of, I go into the gym to look better. Oh, I feel worse about myself. I go into the gym to look better. And it just, this cycle spirals. And I find it with a lot of the ladies that I train, it's the same thing. You have to kind of talk them out of that mindset and be like, when you come into this session, we set marginal goals, we set marginal targets, because those are the things that are going to propel your motivation forward. It's not necessarily going to be the way you look at the end of the session. So I think coming back to the conversation about that kind of like femininity, how do you think femininity in the industry with training has progressed over the last few years? Because I think I've got my own little kind of opinions on it.
Yeah, I'd love to know your opinions. But in terms of my opinions, I think it's definitely changed. When I started in the gym, it was, oh, you like going to the gym? You should be a bodybuilder and do a bikini show. And I mean, I did come from a small town, so it was probably even worse than it would have been somewhere else. But I was very much pushed into, oh, you like training? You should have an aesthetics goal and you should get really lean, and that's what it should be. And it's ridiculous that it took until 7 years into my training and meeting my coach last year for someone to go, hey, you like lifting and you're pretty strong. Have you thought about doing something with a strength goal? With a performance-based goal? And like, I'd always tried to get strong each year, but I'd only been chipping like 5 kilos onto my PBs every year. And so then, like, having a coach that was like, you're competitive, you're strong, you want to get stronger, why not try this? Just see if you like it. And rather than people just turning around and going, oh, you competitive, you like going to the gym, you should try and get as lean as you possibly can and pass out from starvation. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just think it's come a long way, and it's definitely not there yet. And I know it's definitely come a long way because I get people in my comments when I talk about women looking bulky. They're like, no one says this anymore. Like, no one says this. We all know now that, you're not going to get bulky. And I'm like, congratulations that you never see it anymore, and kudos to you. But I've literally had people in the gym go, why are you trying to get stronger? You don't want to lift more than that. You're going to get big. You don't want to get big. Men won't want you. Men will be intimidated by you. And my answer was, good. Like, that was straight up my answer. I was like, if a man is going to be intimidated by little old 65 kilo me, I'm not the problem.
No, I agree completely, and that's kind of where my opinion lies in it. I think femininity has come away from the aesthetic goal, and it's now, what can your body do? Like, a lot of the people that I've trained over the years, it is genuinely a transitional period over the last 5 years. I've found like a lot more ladies are coming in saying, I want to be strong, and normally like a PT or coach's reaction is like, you want to bum and you want to be lean.
Yeah.
No, actually, it isn't that. It isn't that anymore. It is genuinely they want to come in, walk out from the session and feel stronger in themselves throughout the day, which I think is fabulous. I think the fact that we've now transitioning to this where people just want to feel strong. They don't want to pick up like out of their shopping bag and struggle. Someone said to me the other day, what was it? They picked up an 8-kilo kettlebell in like decathlon or something and they could lift it, and they couldn't do that like 2 months ago. And that for me that's a massive win. That's a lifestyle change, that you can do things like that. And that's kind of like where my opinion lies in it. I think there's still, unfortunately, there is still bias in the world of like the aesthetic. And Nick's spoken about you said golden ratio, didn't you, on a previous podcast, about how people should look?
I mean, I was going to say, like, I'm going to contradict that a little bit, because I've got female clients that do want to have a bigger bum and look leaner. And I'm not saying like that's a bad thing either. But I do also have a female client, Andrea. I think you've seen her testimonial on my Instagram page. I assumed she wanted the bum and the lean abs, etc. But she was the complete opposite. She's like Emmaline here. She wanted to lift heavy and get as strong as possible, and she didn't give a fuck. She was like, I don't care if a guy is intimidated by me. I just want to look as good as possible. And she looks fucking insane. She looks so good, and she didn't go down the lean route, which a lot of girls do. However, that being said, there are female clients of mine that always tell me, I want a bigger booty, I want the six pack, and I've got to be real. They tend to compare themselves to other people on social media, and that's why they're feeling that way. They're like, well, this girl looks this way, I want to be like that. And it is hard to basically discuss the idea to them that potentially it's not actually their goal, and it might be they're just trying to compare and trying to be someone else that they're actually not. And I'm not sure we're fully able to like have that conversation with a lot of females yet. At least we're moving in that right direction.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm fortunate now that because of what I do now with my performance-based goals, that a lot of my clients that come to me are people that are like, I just want to get strong. The amount of people that I've got, and women of all ages too, like I'm seeing it younger and younger. You know, we're getting older women, like not older women, let's say like 40s and 50s, starting to recognize that they need to strength train, they need to resistance train, because they need to build what they say is their old lady body. They want to be able to do things in their old age. But I'm also getting clients in their early 20s coming to me with the same thing, saying, I want to build strength now for when I'm older, and so I can do things. I had a mum who is just amazing, and juggling all her kids, and she does home workouts. There was no way she was going to get to a gym. We bought a little bit more weights for her, just expanded. She only had like, I think, a set of like 2 kilo dumbbells, and that was it. So she bought like a little weight set, started doing things at home, and within 6 months she's like, I squatted with my 50 kilo son on my back today because the weights weren't enough. I couldn't even pick him up, like, you know, when we started. And she said, he said it to me. She just went over and she picked him up, and he's gone, Mum, when did you be able to pick me up? And I think that's just the coolest thing, and it's so empowering. Mum strength is not to be fucked with.
Oh, 100%. Like, I've always said about old man strength, but mum strength is another level, man.
Yeah.
And those women will not take shit.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about your mums, but...
Well, I was going to come in and say quickly about my mum. So with the flat move that I've done this weekend, it was something that I kind of want to just feature here on the podcast. And my mum was doing the move. My mum's 62. She's been doing like these workouts that I've set for about kind of 2 years now. And she's, you know, gone through menopause, and she struggled a bit for a period of time, and she didn't feel very strong. She was doing like classes down the gym and down the local village hall with like other old biddies. And she was literally outlifting my dad. Like she was so energized.
I love that.
She was like lifting all the, she was lifting probably the heaviest thing I have in my flat with me, and she didn't seem to struggle. She put it down, went and got something else. And like the fact she's 62 years old and doing this without a stress, without a worry, she was like, see, it's that kettlebell you bought me at Christmas. And I was like, oh, I fucking love that. That for me is, as a son, one of the most valuable things that I've ever had, is having my mum have the strength to do a full move with me. Whereas like 3 years ago, she'd be like, oh, your dad can do it. But now she's like, no, fuck this. I'm doing this. Like, I've trained for this. And like it comes into that conversation of like, fitness and strength training is not just for your, you know, your 20 to 30 year olds or 30 to 40 year olds. It is for everyone. There is an avenue for everyone. Start at Zumba, do Pilates, do bungee, whatever it is that I've seen everywhere. You know, like these kind of things are starting points. They're gateways in, you know, and utilize those to build up that kind of concept of strength, because strength comes in many ways. It's not like Emmaline's doing it. It's not like Nick's doing it. It's not like I'm doing it. It's all different. And it's just to kind of factor that into it as well. See, the thing is, one thing that people tend to have, they feel held back from doing it. Now, the conversation I did want to talk about very, very quickly was, what do you think one mistake of people is when they do feel held back from kind of getting into strength training?
So, like a mistake, like what holds them back, or what they do when they try and get started?
What holds them back?
I think people think you have to join a gym to get strong, and you have to have a lot of things and a lot of equipment. It comes back to that all or nothing mindset. It's like, I've got to do it properly or I'm not doing it all. And I think you can start with such basic stuff. If you want to get stronger over time, you will probably have to expand, but you don't have to start there. You can start with body weight routines. I have a client who we've tried to get into a couple of home workouts, and she's like, I just don't enjoy them, but I'm really enjoying gardening at the moment. And I was like, well, this is sick, because if you're out in the garden and you're moving wheelbarrows and you're bending down and you're digging in the ground, you're moving your body, you're putting it through the ringer by all of those movements, you're lifting things, you're still moving and still getting stronger through that. And if you're doing that consistently, you're going to get stronger. I was like, a perfect example is a farmer. Farmers are the strongest fucking people you'll meet. They've never touched a dumbbell in their life, but they're very strong because of their job. And so I don't think strength is restricted to picking up a kettlebell or picking up a dumbbell. It can be just taking the smallest step possible and doing something more than what you were already doing. And in terms of joining the gym, they're like, oh, well, I have to go in and deadlift. No, you don't. You can go in and pick up your set of 2 kilo dumbbells and go sit in the corner and do some little shoulder presses or whatever it is that you feel comfortable doing. You don't have to go balls to the wall. Take the first step, and then when you're comfortable there, take the next one.
Yeah, you tell your 165 kilo middle-aged mum to do a deadlift.
Yeah.
When just bending over is literally strength training for her.
Yeah.
I love that, because obviously I'm a bodyweight guy. Calisthenics is my thing. I love it, and I went through a massive phase of just doing calisthenics, just because I wanted to prove that you can train anywhere, anytime. That typical thing, anytime, anywhere, any place kind of mentality. And there is a time where it might be important to add stuff to your strength training, for sure. But as you said perfectly, you do not need to start there. And for those people at home, maybe not confident in going to a gym yet, you've got everything you need at home.
Yeah,
everything.
You do.
100%. I mean, you've got everything you need in your backyard. I don't know whether you've ever seen natural stone lifting, which is something strong men do. They will literally go out into the wilderness and pick up rocks, which I think is so much fun. I
don't know if you've ever tried shopping a whole week's food shop and trying to grab all the bags at once and then walking into your back door.
Yeah.
Eight different bags and 8 different.
And they're hooked on your elbow and up on your shoulder and on your hands, and you're like, I'm only doing one trip. That is exerting yourself. I refuse to do any more trips. I think it's you don't need fancy equipment. You just need something to pick up.
Yeah. And I think that will build the motivation that you need as well, because at the end of the day, it's not that you need motivation, you need momentum when you're training. You need to get into a rhythm. As soon as you get into a rhythm, it's fantastic. You can build on that over time. Like you're saying, you can add stuff into your routine. Now, I want to kind of conclude on this as well, because I want to know what is kind of going forward for yourself, Emmaline. What is the plan? What's the game plan in the next year, next 2 years? What are you thinking of wanting to achieve in the next kind of years?
I stopped making plans because they kept changing. It's like, oh, I'll just start my Instagram and see what happens. Well, that went very fast. And, I'm not like in the UK. I'll move back in a couple of months. And then it got pushed out again. And here I am 2 years later and still here. So I stopped kind of making plans because my timelines always got skewed. I kind of have things that I want to do and that I want to achieve, but I've stopped putting them on timelines. It's actually a key thing I teach people with dieting too. Stop looking for an end date. Just say you want to get there and it doesn't matter when. So I want to keep growing my one-to-one coaching is my main thing at the moment. I have a lot of demand to do a second recipe book, so I will probably aim to, I will definitely aim to do that this year, get a second recipe book out, and then eventually, no set timeline, I would like to expand into group coaching, because I came up through group coaching initially before I got a one-to-one coach, and I found the sense of community just amazing, and I would like to be able to help a lot more people for a lower cost, because I feel like cost is the biggest barrier for most people for coaching. So I would like to get into group coaching at some point down the line, and then personally just keep getting strong as fuck, keep lifting heavier things, and keep traveling the world.
I love that. Emily, honestly, it's been a pleasure. I know we haven't had a chance to have a chat before this, but thank you so much for coming on and lighting up your wonderful personality to all of our audience. And Dan, is there anything you want to add before we quit today?
Not really, just you've been fantastic. And obviously now the one thing we want to say as well, Emmaline, we allow our guests to obviously plug where they're from. We're not going to gatekeep them, but you cannot find her. So
You'll
where
never
can people
find
you?
me.
You'll never find her. Where can people find you on social media, and where can people also hear about your services?
So I am at Coach Emmaline on all platforms. Instagram is my main one. I'm a bit slack at posting on all the others, so you'll always find me on Instagram. I am a one-woman show. If you ever send me a DM, I will be the person that gets back to you. You'll probably get a voice note. So yeah, that's the main one to find me, is on Instagram at Coach Emmaline, and I will always get back to you.
Wonderful.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Now, what does a Australian say when they're about to end a podcast? What is a way of saying goodbye in Australia?
See you later. I don't know.
Yeah. Fucking love it.
That'll do. That'll do.
So guys, thank you so much for listening. Dan normally does the outro, but we've changed roles today. Look at this. If you found this useful, please do like and share. Share it with a friend. And if you are watching on YouTube, give us the old like button and a little comment underneath, and a little sexy subscription button. And if you are on Spotify, I believe you can leave a nice little 5-star review if you found it useful. Make sure to follow Coach Emmaline and also myself and Dan King at Instagram. And see you guys next time.
Thank you so
Ciao,
much.
ciao.